Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a single event that was told as two completely different stories. A U.S. airstrike in Nigeria that happened on Christmas Day. So what was it really? A standard counterterrorism operation? Or something else? A specific mission to save Christians? Well, the answer you get depends entirely on who you ask, and it reveals a huge divide in how this event was framed for the rest of the world. All right, first things first, let's just cover what we know for sure, the undisputed facts of what actually happened on December 25th. The day moved really fast. It all started in the morning with an announcement from the U.S. president on social media. Then, by the afternoon, U.S. Africa Command, or AFRICOM, confirmed it. They said strikes were carried out and that it was done in coordination with Nigeria. And then, by that evening, Nigeria's foreign ministry chimed in, confirming a joint operation against terrorists. But this is exactly where the two stories start to split. Let's take a look at how the White House framed this, because they focused heavily on religious persecution. I mean, the language here is incredibly direct, right? President Trump's justification wasn't just about fighting terrorism in general. He very explicitly framed this as payback for the slaughtering of Christians. And this didn't just come out of nowhere. This was really the climax of months of specific rhetoric and policy moves. The administration had been talking about an existential threat to Christianity in the region for a while. They'd also recently put Nigeria back on a list for religious freedom violations and even added it to a travel ban list. Okay, now let's flip the coin and look at Nigeria's official response. They offered a completely different explanation for the very same event, a joint anti-terror operation. And there it is, a direct contradiction. Nigeria's foreign minister was crystal clear. This was about targeting terrorists, period. And he specifically said it has nothing to do with a particular religion. That statement completely reframes the entire motive that the White House had just presented. This really lays out the conflict perfectly. You've got two governments, two allies, who worked together on a military action, but they're telling two fundamentally different stories to the world about why it even happened. Nigerian officials pushed back hard, arguing that the reality on the ground is way more complicated than just one group attacking another. The presidential press secretary actually called the U.S. version a gross exaggeration, stressing that the violence is random and hits everyone: Christians, Muslims, churches, and mosques. So, to really get a handle on why these two views are so different, we need to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture of the security crisis in Nigeria. What's actually going on there? First off, it's just so important to remember the sheer scale of this country. We're talking about 240 million people. It's Africa's most populous nation, and as you can imagine, its internal dynamics are incredibly complex. And look at this. The population is split almost perfectly down the middle. About half are Muslim, living mainly in the north, and the other half are Christian, mostly in the south. This delicate balance is, of course, a huge factor in the nation's politics and security. And the threat isn't coming from just one place. It's this messy, tangled web of different extremist groups and straight-up criminal gangs. You've got Boko Haram, ISWAP, that's the Islamic State West Africa province, Al-Qaeda affiliates, and then these armed gangs who are just kidnapping people for ransom money. And some of the recent big attacks really drive this point home. They target both Christians and Muslims. On one hand, you have a massive kidnapping from a Catholic school. On the other, a deadly attack on a mosque. This is the kind of evidence that really backs up Nigeria's argument that everyone from all faiths is a victim of this violence. So where does all this leave us? Well, we have a single military action, but two totally different stories, and it seems like each one was crafted for a very specific audience. Each story serves a purpose. The U.S. version might energize a political base that's focused on religious freedom, while Nigeria's story is all about national unity and control. It brings up a pretty critical question for all of us. When we see these events unfold, how much does political messaging shape what we think is actually happening on the ground? What do you think? What happens when two allies tell two different stories about the same event? We would genuinely love to read what you think about this complex issue down in the comments. And if you found this explainer helpful, go ahead and like and follow for more content that